gang member. Gary was left to defend himself after being separated from his colleagues, but managed to gain the upper hand until two other inmates joined in. Several other guards eventually brought the situation under control, and the captain was taken to the hospital. In response to the incident, the president of Correction Captains Association mentioned that the assaults on officers unfortunately happen too often at Rikers. However, it's not just the officers who are victims of these brutal attacks at Rikers. Sometimes, the inmates themselves get assaulted by none other than the correctional officers. 2015, the New Yorker gets their hands on surveillance footage from Rikers Island that kind of raises concern about the abuse and violence inmates face. The clip shows a guard coming to Browder's cell to take him to the shower, but instead of just escorting him, the guard ends up slamming Browder, who was already handcuffed, to the ground and holds him down. Two more guards rushed over to join in. Browder ended up spending 3 years at Rikers. 2 of those were in solitary, all because he was accused of stealing a backpack in May 2010. He was finally released in June 2013 when charges against him were dropped. February 4th, 2022. Deputies at the Loudoun County Adult Detention Center in Virginia noticed that inmate Richard Pilland had covered his cell window with toothpaste to block their view. Pilland refused to follow orders, so deputies had to use the pepper spray. Medical staff then tries to help by washing off that spray, but after that, Pilland was taken to a nearby shower, but he gets aggressive before he can even get in. So they had to put him in an emergency restraint chair and take him to the shower in the medical area. When they turned on the water, the system controls had failed, and the water got way too hot. This guy had first and second degree burns after being left in that water for about 45 seconds. His family sued the county for $7 million, saying their son was tortured as he was forced into that hot water. The lawsuit was settled for $500,000. May 19th, 2016, a disturbing video was released by Buffalo Police, revealing the mistreatment of inmate Shane Porter by jail attendant Matthew Jaskula. The events leading up to the violent altercation remain unclear. Here we see Jaskula aggressively lunging at Porter, who was handcuffed, and slamming him into a nearby door. 2 other cell block attendants followed him into another room, where Porter is then thrown to the floor and dragged across the tile. In another shot from a different angle, Jaskula is seen dragging Porter across the floor like a rag doll. Porter is placed in a cell, and 2 other officers proceed to strip him of his clothes, while he stands in a puddle of his own blood. He's then restrained and wheeled into another cell, where he's left waiting for assistance. After more than 90 minutes, Porter's finally removed from the restraint chair and taken out of his cell. He's then escorted out of city lockup bloodied without shoes or pants, and placed in the back of a squad car with no ambulance in sight. As a result of his excessive use of force in violation of Porter's civil rights, Jaskula was sentenced to 18 months in federal prison, and as a settlement for the trauma he endured, the city paid Porter $300,000. We all know tensions can run high between inmates and correctional officers, but sometimes they end up being each other's heroes. June 23, 2016, Gary Grimm was on duty at Parker County District Courthouse in Texas when he suddenly fell ill. The inmates in the holding cell noticed Officer Grimm slumped over and unresponsive, so they sprang into action. Surveillance videos from the courthouse show the inmates shouting, banging on walls, and even breaking out of their cell to get help from deputies in the courtroom above. When the officers arrived, they found Officer Grimm without a pulse and immediately called paramedics. Thanks to the quick thinking and actions of the inmates, Officer Grimm's life was saved as he was having a heart attack. After the incident, Grimm expressed his gratitude, saying,
Election night on Comedy Central. Jon Stewart's going live with a 1-hour special.
Right is left, up is down.
Indecision 2024. Nothing we can do about it now. Hosted by Jon Stewart. Live tonight at 11 on Comedy Central. And next day on Paramount Plus.
$631 on this Somniva Queen mattress, plus 27% off all selected mattresses during Black Friday at Bob Mills. Scan now for all these Black Friday savings.
If they wished harm for me, all they had to do was sit there and do nothing. Instead of overtaking me and taking my gun and killing me, or taking a hostage and escaping, they looked at me as a human being. A similar incident happened in Florida when a teen who had been arrested for violating his juvie probation saved the life of the cop who was booking him in jail. September 2014, Fort Lauderdale police officer Franklin Folks collapsed from chest pain as he was booking Jamal Rutledge. Folks fell back while he was doing paperwork, started struggling on the ground, grabbing at his chest. Jamal sprang into action and started kicking the security door, alerting the other officers to the situation. 2 officers rushed to the scene, grabbed a defibrillator, and performed CPR on Folks, ultimately saving his life. Medical personnel later said that Jamal's quick thinking played a big part in the officer's survival. August 2016, a crazy incident goes down at Payne County Jail. Inmate Toshka Robert Frank Moret decided to take a swing at a detention officer in the booking area. He then proceeded to pick him up and throw him to the ground. Now another inmate, Robert Charles Hammock, wasn't having any of that. About 15 seconds into the scuffle, Hammock jumped in to help out the detention officer. He grabbed Merritt and restrained him until backup arrived. As we've just seen, correctional officers and inmates can help each other. However, it's not always for the best reasons. April 29th, 2022, Casey White, who was waiting trial for a capital murder case, managed to escape from the Lauderdale County Jail in Florence, Alabama. And guess who helped him? None other than correctional officer Vicky White. Vicky orchestrated the whole thing, telling her colleagues that this was a scheduled mental health evaluation at the courthouse. But their plan didn't last long. May 9th, law enforcement caught up with Casey and Vicky in Evansville, Indiana. After a manhunt that ended with Casey crashing the car he was driving, Vicky tragically shot herself in the head, while Casey was apprehended and brought back to Alabama. Under Alabama's felony murder rule, Casey was initially charged with Vicky's murder. However, the charge was dropped when Casey pled guilty to prison escape on May 5th, 2023. August 31st, 2023. Another convicted murderer, Danilo Cavalcante, managed to escape custody. Surveillance footage captures Cavalcante casually walking to a back wall in the exercise yard, glancing around, and then grabbing onto a razor wire fence. He pulls off a Spider-Man move, pressing his feet against the wall, and climbs up until he vanishes from sight. Turns out on September 13th, they found him hiding. And as he attempted to crawl away, he was apprehended, believe it or not, by a law enforcement dog named Yoda. June 2022. 2 inmates pull off a daring escape from Hamilton County Justice Center. Security footage captures Melissa Cordell and George Bridewell escaping while they were being booked into the jail. They were able to blend in with the other released inmates while waiting to be processed. On June 8th, there were no officers around when Melissa was being booked. The video shows her on the phone testing out a door. When she realizes it's unlocked, she takes her chance and makes her way into the property area. Cordell then hid behind a pole in a wall. After a clerk returned property to inmates leaving the jail, Cordell then took off her inmate outfit and left with them. She was captured a day later. On June 20th, George Bridewell was waiting to be arraigned in a holding tank. A deputy was releasing people from a cell in the same area. And the deputy had a list and was calling out names. He realized Bridewell was on that list and told them to go back to the cell. But as public defenders asked to open the cell door to gather information, Bridewell took the opportunity. He joined a group of inmates being processed to leave. September 2nd, 2016. A homicide suspect from Nevada managed to escape from police custody in a pretty wild way. Alonzo Perez, the suspect, was handcuffed to a table in a police interview room when he decided to try and break free. He twisted his body until he was able to snap the hinges off the handcuffs holding his right wrist to the table. After breaking free, he climbed onto the chair and then up to the ceiling to make his escape. Even though he was still wearing ankle chains and the broken cuff on his right wrist, Perez managed to drop from the ceiling into a hallway, run out a door, and steal a work truck that was left idling in a nearby parking lot. After a 4-day manhunt, Perez was recaptured and eventually sentenced to life in prison for 3 murder charges. October 18th, 2019, 17-year-old Quantrell D. Schwartzlow pulled off a daring escape from the Rock County Sheriff's Office in Janesville interview room after being arrested on suspicion of strangulation and sexual assault. Surveillance footage captures the teen making a break for it. As soon as the detective exited the room, he wasted no time, opening the blinds and pushing out the window before taking a leap from 12 feet up. Another camera caught him sprinting across the lawn, making a clean getaway. When the detective returned 14 minutes later, the room was empty and the window was wide open. Despite his escape, Schwartzlow was eventually recaptured. He was sentenced to 2 years in prison and 2 years of extended supervision for the strangulation charges, as well as the same amount of time for his escape. February 2023, Eddie Villalobos was brought into court by a deputy who followed the law by removing his handcuffs and leg shackles. But as soon as he set him free, he made a run for it, leaving the deputy in the dust as he sprinted down the hallway and out of the building. Eddie was in court to face charges for the fatal stabbings of 2 people back in 2021. Unfortunately for Villalobos, his taste of freedom was short-lived. The sheriff's department quickly sprang into action, and after a few hours, they found him hiding in a nearby apartment under a blanket in a closet. He was promptly taken back into custody and later sentenced to life in prison. 2019. Disguising himself as his own daughter during her visit, Brazilian gang leader Clavino da Silva attempted a daring escape. He tried walking out of the main door of that penitentiary in her place, but sharp-eyed officials quickly caught on to that scheme and made him strip in front of their cameras. After his failed escape, da Silva was moved to a max security unit within the prison, and just 3 days later, he was found dead in his cell. Prison officials reported that he had taken his own life.
What is? We got an escapee.
And on April 5th, 2006, just hours after breaking out of a super secure prison, Richard Lee McNair, a convicted killer, somehow managed to trick a cop into thinking he was just a regular jogger.
Where you live at?
Down the road by Pineville.
Pineville?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Do you have any form of identification on you? What's your name?
Robert Jones.
Richard McNair's a notorious American murderer, known for his ability to escape custody and avoid getting caught. Back in '87, he killed a man and shot another during a robbery gone wrong. He is currently locked up for those crimes, plus his multiple prison breaks. McNair pulled off 3 daring escapes from 3 different prisons, using some pretty clever tactics. The first time, he used lip balm to slip out of the handcuffs. Then he would crawl through a ventilation duct for his second escape. And on his last one in 2006, he would hide in a pile of mailbags and managed to convince a police officer who stopped him that he was just out for a jog.
Do jog again in the future. Carry some ID with you.
All right.
That's our quick line there.
Have a good day now.
Be careful, buddy.
Thank you.
All right.
This guy made it all the way to Canada twice to evade capture, roaming around the country for over a year, before finally getting caught in a routine police check in 2007.
Big Pharma's Innovation Tap Dance has the industry tripping over its own rhetoric. The truth is, high drug prices don't mean more innovation. Don't let Big Pharma tap dance around the facts. Hold Big Pharma accountable.
He's got a house full of children, and now he's going to spend the rest of his life in a penitentiary. Who's going to take care of your kids?
Jody was 11 when his teacher kidnapped and molested him. The teacher was eventually arrested, and Jody's father knew he'd be escorted through an airport on live TV. The father decided to wait there in disguise, ready to do something nobody could have imagined. Here are 10 parents who took revenge on child molesters. Number 10. Jason Browning.
I just walked in front of the floor and I got even a bloody constable right now, officer.
July 18th, 2014. An angry father in Daytona Beach, Florida, made a frantic call to 911. He reported that he had caught someone molesting his son and took matters into his own hands by beating that molester until he was knocked out, ready for the police to apprehend. The father, Jason Browning, described the scene to the dispatcher, stating that the assailant, Raymond Frolander, was still breathing but unable to speak. Frolander was lying on the floor, unconscious. Curious about the extent of the father's actions, the dispatcher asked if he had used any weapons to knock out Frolander. Browning simply replied, "My fist and my foot." The shocking photographs of 18-year-old Raymond Frolander's battered face quickly spread across news outlets worldwide. They served as a visual testament to the violent encounter he had experienced at the hands of the enraged father. The question is, what really happened that fateful night? According to the father, he immediately sensed something was wrong when he arrived home. The look on Frolander's face confirmed his suspicions. As Frolander's pants fell to his ankles, the father knew no further explanation was needed. He had witnessed a disturbing sight that left him with no choice but to take action. The father explained that Frolander, who was close to the family, was in their apartment while he was out. However, when he returned home and discovered what happened to his son, he began beating this harasser up until he was black and blue. He even told 911 dispatcher that he had loved Frolander up until 15 minutes ago. You can easily imagine that Jason Browning was seeing red at that very moment. So what stopped him from killing Frolander with his bare hands?
I attacked him viciously, and I didn't stop. The only time I paused was to go to the kitchen and retrieve a butcher knife, because I was going to kill him.
The father indeed admitted that his initial instinct was to kill Frolander to ensure that he could never harm anyone again. However, his son intervened and saved his own attacker's life, reminding his father of what he's got to lose.
He just looked at me and said, "Sir," and just shook his head. I just put the knife down.
April 2nd, 2015, Frolander was sentenced to 25 years in prison for molesting the child. By accepting a plea deal, he avoided a mandatory life sentence. However, in addition to his prison term, Frolander was mandated to register as a sex offender for life and wear a GPS monitor upon release. Meanwhile, the father faced no charges for his actions. When asked about Browning's reaction, Daytona Beach Police Chief Michael Chitwood responded, "The father acted as a father should act." Number 9. Paramjit Singh. Father in India turned into a relentless vigilante after a teenager sexually abused his daughter. Paraminder Singh was accused of molesting Paramjit Singh's baby in 2014 after the child's mother caught the teen in the act. April 19, 2016, right after the court hearing, Paramjit Singh announced that he was going to forgive the accused and settle the matter outside of court. However, his plan for settling was far beyond anyone's wild imagination. Paramjit offered to drive the boy home to the village where they both lived, Kotliablu, on his motorbike. Along the way, however, Paramjit stopped that bike and brutally attacked Parminder. He beat him badly, tied him to a tree, and chopped off his hands with a machete. Paramjit then fled the scene, leaving the teen abandoned near a canal, writhing in agony. The local residents discovered the teenager and quickly informed the police, who rushed him to the hospital where the doctors managed to stabilize him, but his hands couldn't be saved. Paramjit Singh was arrested the next day and was charged with attempted murder under Section 307 of the Indian Penal Code. During his questioning, Paramjit admitted to planning the crime in advance, as he had brought a rope and a sharp weapon with him. This outstanding revelation has only intensified the shock and outrage surrounding the incident. Supporters argue that the father's actions were driven by his anguish and frustration with the justice system's failure to adequately protect his daughter. On the other hand, critics emphasize the importance of due process and upholding the rule of law. While this incident raises difficult questions about the lengths one can go to seek justice, it also underscores the urgent need for a strong legal system that can effectively address such heinous crimes and protect the victims. Number 8. Kenneth Faulkner. July 2015, Maury County, Tennessee. Father's protective instincts led to a shocking confrontation. Kenneth Faulkner couldn't stand the thought of Thomas Williams, a man accused of soliciting his 2 daughters, getting away with just 3 years of supervised probation as punishment. Faulkner's anger reached its boiling point, resulting in a violent encounter that ultimately led him being in handcuffs. But how did everything start? Late 2014, Faulkner, a devoted father in his 30s, had a gut feeling that something was wrong with his 2 daughters. He suspected abuse and wasted no time in reporting it to the Columbia Police Department. It turned out that his daughters were being abused by Williams, whom they thought were related to through marriage. March 2015, the Amore County grand jury indicted Williams on 2 counts of solicitation of a minor. This charge involves unlawfully persuading a licensed person under the age of 18 to engage in inappropriate activities. Williams